R. I woke up today and instantly I felt it. A heavy weight sitting right on my chest. It was a simple morning, nothing unusual was happening, but the feeling inside me was so heavy. I did not want to move. I just lay there, staring up at the white ceiling, watching the sunlight slowly filter through the thin blinds. The room was cold, the air was still, and my mind felt completely foggy. R. You know those days where you open your eyes, and before your feet even touch the floor, you already feel like you are behind. That was me today. My alarm went off at 7 in the morning, buzzing softly on my wooden nightstand. I reached out, turned it off, and stayed frozen in bed for another 20 minutes. Everything felt slow, heavy, and completely exhausting. Usually I have a very strict morning routine. I get up, I make my bed, I drink a large glass of room temperature water, and I sit down to brew my morning coffee. It is a predictable cycle, and it usually helps me feel grounded and ready for the daily grind. But today my routine completely broke down before it even had a chance to start. I finally dragged myself out of bed at around 7:30. My legs felt like lead, my feet dragged against the cool hardwood floor, and I walked straight into the kitchen like a ghost. I grabbed the kettle, filled it with water, and turned on the stove. While waiting for the water to boil, I leaned against the kitchen counter, resting my forehead in my hands, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator. I poured the hot water into my favorite ceramic mug, added a splash of oat milk, and walked over to my work desk. I took a sip, expecting the rich, bitter taste of fresh coffee, but it tasted like warm milk and plain water. I looked down into the cup, confused, and then I realized something ridiculous. I had completely forgotten to add the coffee grounds into the filter. I stood there, staring at a cup of hot, milky water, and I actually laughed out loud. It was a quiet, tired laugh. That was my very first clue that my brain was not functioning properly today. My thoughts were scattered, my energy was drained, and the morning was moving at a painful, snail-like crawl. I threw the liquid into the sink, remade the coffee properly this time, and finally sat down at my desk. I pressed the power button on my laptop, waiting for the screen to light up. My plan for today was very simple. I had a single video project to edit, a few audio tracks to review, and a short script to write. On paper, it was supposed to be the easiest workday of the whole week. No long meetings, no filming outdoors, no complex tasks, just a simple, quiet day at home. But somehow that simplicity made it feel even heavier. When you have a massive list of tasks, your brain goes into survival mode and just executes them one by one. But when your day is completely open and you still cannot find the motivation to complete one basic task, the mental pressure builds up fast. I stared at the blank digital document for almost an hour. The black cursor kept blinking at me, on, off, on, off. It felt like a tiny clock reminding me of every single wasted minute. I wrote one sentence, read it out loud, hated how it sounded, and pressed backspace until the screen was blank again. The creative block was real, and it was suffocating. Outside my window, the city was moving fast. I could hear cars driving by, street vendors setting up their shops, and neighbors opening their front doors, rushing off to start their busy days. Everyone seemed to have a clear direction, a purpose, a destination. I felt like the only person in the world who was completely stuck in place, moving in slow motion, while everything else zoomed past me. By 10 o'clock in the morning, the heavy feeling in my chest had turned into a quiet, simmering frustration. I decided to step away from the desk for a moment, thinking a short break might clear my head. I walked into the living room, sat on the rug, and looked at my camera bag lying near the sofa. I thought maybe I should check the raw video footage from yesterday just to see if I could get inspired. I unzipped the front pocket of the bag to pull out my external hard drive. I reached inside. Nothing, just an empty black fabric lining. My hand searched around blindly. Still nothing. I paused. My heart did a quick, sudden jump. I told myself not to panic. I probably just put it in the main compartment of the backpack. I unzipped the main compartment, pulled out my camera body, two lenses, a pouch of memory cards, a notebook, and a bunch of tangled charging cables. I laid everything out on the floor piece by piece. The hard drive was not there. I unzipped the back laptop sleeve. Empty. I checked the side mesh pockets. Empty. Now, panic has a very strange way of instantly clearing away morning fog. All that sluggishness, that heavy fatigue I had been carrying since 7 in the morning, completely evaporated in a fraction of a second. It was replaced by a sharp, icy surge of adrenaline. That specific hard drive contained over 40 hours of unbacked video footage, voiceover files, project templates, and private personal logs that I had built over the last 6 months. If that drive was gone, my entire work pipeline for the next 2 months was completely destroyed. My heart started hammering against my ribs loud and fast. I began tearing my small apartment apart. I lifted the couch cushions, checked under the bed, looked inside my wardrobe, moved the laundry basket, and even looked under the kitchen table. I was moving around like a madman, breathing heavily, throwing blankets aside, and checking places that made 0 sense. I even opened the refrigerator and looked inside, because when anxiety takes over your brain, all logic flies right out the window. The drive was nowhere to be found. My simple, quiet, heavy day had suddenly taken a sharp left turn directly into a complete nightmare. The whole day was officially shaken up, totally off the rails, and spiraling out of my control. I sat down on the hardwood floor, right in the middle of all the mess I had just created. My camera gear, cables, and clothes were scattered everywhere around me. I closed my eyes, covered my face with both hands, and took a deep, long, shaky breath. I told myself to stop. I told myself to just pause, calm down, and trace my steps backward. Panic was not going to bring my files back. Running around like a crazy person was only making my head spin faster. I closed my eyes and forced my mind to go back to yesterday evening. It was around 8 p.m. I was feeling restless at home, so I had packed my bag and walked down to a small, quiet coffee shop located 3 blocks away from my building. I remembered sitting at a small wooden corner table right next to the window. I remembered pulling out my laptop, plugging the black hard drive into the side USB port, and reviewing a few clips while drinking a warm tea. I remembered the barista telling me that the shop was closing at 9 p.m. I remembered packing my laptop away quickly, grabbing my jacket, and walking home in the dark. Did I actually unplug the hard drive and put it back into my backpack, or did I leave it sitting right there on that wooden table? I could not remember. The memory was completely blank. My mind had been on autopilot, lost in thought, and I had 0 recollection of picking up the drive. I looked up at the wall clock. It was almost 11 in the morning. That coffee shop opens its doors at 9 a.m. every day. That meant the shop had already been open for 2 full hours. If I had left my drive sitting on that corner table 15 hours ago, anyone could have walked in and picked it up. A customer could have taken it. A cleaning worker could have accidentally swept it into the trash during the night shift, or it could just be sitting in a lost and found box somewhere. My entire day, which was supposed to be a low-energy, routine editing day, had suddenly transformed into an urgent, desperate rescue mission. I did not even bother changing out of my gray, oversized hoodie. I grabbed my keys from the hook near the door, shoved my feet into my sneakers without tying the laces properly, and ran out of the apartment. I rushed down the stairs, skipping 2 steps at a time, and pushed open the heavy glass entrance door of my building. The moment I stepped outside, a wave of cool, damp morning air hit my face. It was drizzling. A thin mist like rain was falling from the sky, making the concrete sidewalks dark, slick, and shiny. I did not have an umbrella, and I did not have a rain jacket, but I did not care at all. I started walking as fast as I could down the street, my sneakers squeaking against the wet pavement. My head was down, my hands were shoved deep into my hoodie pockets, and my mind was racing with every single worst-case scenario you could possibly imagine. I I thought about the months of lost work, the missed deadlines, the client calls I would have to make, and the immense stress of having to re-record everything from scratch. R. As I was power walking past the local grocery store, dodging people holding large umbrellas, a sudden realization hit me like a brick wall. I was letting the morning control me. I was letting the anxiety dictate every single step I took. R. I stopped dead in my tracks, right at the corner of the busy main intersection. Cars were driving past, splashing water from shallow puddles, street lights were reflecting off the wet asphalt, and people were pushing past me on the sidewalk. R. I stood there, right in the middle of the crowd, took off my hood, and let the cool drizzle hit my warm face. I took another deep breath, a real conscious breath. I said to myself, okay, whatever happens at that coffee shop happens. If the drive is there, amazing. R. If the drive is gone, I will figure it out. I will adapt, I will rebuild, and I will handle it. But I am not going to run down this street like a victim of my own day. I am going to walk in there calmly and take control of this situation, no matter what the outcome is. R. That small mental shift changed everything. It was the exact moment where an unplanned, chaotic day started turning back into something manageable. I smoothed down my wet hair, adjusted my hoodie, and resumed walking, but this time my steps were slow, deliberate, and steady. R. I stopped rushing. I looked around at the city. I noticed the way the wet leaves on the trees looked so bright green under the gray sky. I noticed the smell of damp earth and fresh coffee floating through the air. R. By choosing to control my internal state, the chaotic environment around me suddenly lost its power to overwhelm me. I reached the coffee shop. It was a cozy, old-fashioned place with a dark wooden facade and large glass windows. The glass was fogged up from the heat inside. R. I pushed the heavy oak door open, making the small brass bell above it ring softly. Ding! The warmth inside the shop wrapped around me instantly. It smelled heavenly, a mix of freshly ground coffee beans, melted butter, and warm cinnamon pastries. R. Soft jazz music was playing quietly from small speakers in the ceiling.